Recording in progress.
Why did they give us this stuff at the last minute?
No, we'll just give it, this is from
Not even addressed
Oh,
to
okay.
anybody.
the manager's report.
Okay. Because I'm saying, I didn't have time to do this.
Yeah, and there is more executive session stuff that came in. I haven't read that.
It must have been forwarded to me because I know history or something, because it's written just to the city hall.
Would you hand this down to Rocky? Before I forget about it? Yeah, I like it. We just have to redo another, we have to do an ordinance to change it back from the old one, which the old one is, I'm sorry, it's just,
It was just,
I love Elaine, but. Oh, we
They'll have to
try
look.
not to. So bad. I love Elaine Woolsey and I miss her a lot. Yes, she was, yeah.
apparently, I'm like the city historian now.
The design was like when they were passing, and we're all going like, no. Thank you, Angelique. I know where sister cities are, and it ain't them. I'm lucky, I get to sit next to Frank.
Have to call up the agenda, no hard copy, huh?
I have mine handy if you give me a second and a half.
You know me, I'm old.
I'm with you. I gotta have my paper, I'm sorry.
Thank you, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, we can just look at it right here, so
Yeah.
it's all right.
Good to know.
Okay, we're live.
Okay. Call to order the Urban Renewal Commission meeting of November 2nd, 2022. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Sean Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Here.
Vice Chair Doug Neely.
Here.
Chair Frank O'Donnell.
Here. Next item of business is our citizen comments. I have two with no attendees via Zoom, so those two, I'll take them in the order they are. Mr. William Gifford. Mr. Gifford, would you like to come forward?
Mr. Gifford is, yeah,
I was commenting about an agenda item.
it's item number 1.
Our policy is we don't take comments on agenda items things that are on the agenda from, under citizen comments.
Right. Unrelated, William, it has to be unrelated to that, so that this does not be allowed on an item on the agenda.
I wanted to speak to an item on the agenda.
Okay, then that's not citizen comment.
That's not citizen.
That's why I was hesitant to come up.
Okay. Oh, I see. All right.
Well, we didn't say we were going to take citizen comments on the agenda item either.
Well, then we have the second one by Mr. Seth Henderson. Is this an item on the agenda? It is not. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Seth Henderson, Portland. Commissioners, thank you very much for the 3 minutes this evening. I know you had a very busy October, and I just wanted to follow up quickly on the October 17th email that I had sent to James and Tony and copied you guys on, specifically in regards to our efforts towards federal and state grants and forgivable loans. And I just wanted to ask if any of you had any questions regarding that, if you had a chance to review it. And if you haven't, I completely understand because you've had other priorities.
Commissioners, anybody care to comment or question? Anybody? Seeing none, I have none. I read it. A lot of unanswered questions, but they're not to be directed to you tonight.
Okay. The one ask that was in that email that I'd like to ask you about this evening is in regards to the governor's regional solutions team. So there are 11 regions, of which Metro is one of them. Each one has a separate team. The Metro team has 13 solutions team members. They cover such items as water resources, park and rec, employment, transportation, land conservation, housing, environmental. And if a project is significant enough and impacts enough of those items, your project can be put as a priority to the governor and the solutions team in helping you find solutions for funding and execution of that project. So I was hoping that, similar to working with James and Tony with the county on predominantly federal funds, that it would be acceptable to the commission for us to do the heavy lift, and again, keep Tony and James up to date, working with that group. And this is obviously timely because they would put this project on the priority list for the new governor coming in, and they would consider whether they would be willing to work with us to find solutions to that project.
I don't know if anybody's had time to digest that full, and I certainly haven't. I'm not ready to make a decision on it tonight. Do I have any input from any other commission?
I guess the question would be, is it intended to be on a future agenda again?
So tonight, I put on the dais under city manager's report. I was going to make sure. So I put on the dais for the urban renewal commissioners, the email from Mr. Henderson on October 17th, as well as a previous one concerning the urban renewal ask for the 30 million. And so under city manager's report, it was more going to be, want to make sure that everybody has this, has seen it, has the chance to read it, if there are any questions. And then we're going to have a discussion about this opportunity with regional solutions, and then get direction on how to proceed during under the city manager's report.
Quite honestly, I'm not ready to proceed on it tonight. I'm actually disappointed in the previous efforts with the federal. I thought it was taken care of in plenty of time in search of $10 million. Now that's been reduced to 2, and it looks like this project is still a project in search of funding. So I'm disappointed in the lack of results in that. So I for one, am not prepared to move on this, but I'll go with the pleasure of my fellow commissioners. Does anybody want to put this on the future agenda or give you a chance to review?
Yeah, I recommend that.
Okay, I certainly recommend that. Future agenda item, give you a chance to review everything. The state solutions thing.
Well, yeah, I would be happy to do that. I've already reviewed at least the email that we were given from October 17th. And I think if we're wanting to allow them to get as much funds that would be separate from the urban renewal agency, that it would be in our benefit to allow them to move forward on this. And it's not even that they need our approval for this, which is my understanding, but I appreciate that Mr. Henderson was willing to come in and ask for that blessing once again, like they did for the Clackamas County stuff.
Well, I think what staff is looking for is approval to provide the assistance as they were asked to do backup before. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think at this point, we were asking if this is something that the Urban Renewal Commission would like more information on to make a decision. We're not asking for, I was not anticipating asking for a decision tonight.
Okay, let's
It was
leave it
more
at that.
informational. We have worked with Regional Solutions in the past on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
And the locks.
And the locks, when I met with Mr. Henderson and his team and the county government affairs staff about a week and a half ago, there was this discussion about this opportunity with Regional Solutions. This was the first opportunity to get in front of the whole commission and kind of bring this forward as a potential opportunity for discussion.
So then I think we can safely say we'd like to see a future item and give us more information on the pursuit of this and how you fit into the mix, how staff fits into the mix. Anybody in disagreement with that approach?
Well, and maybe an update on the federal that you were talking about. I had not received an update on that, so I would
Nor
be
have I.
interested in hearing what has fallen short.
While you're here, it went from 10 million to 2 million. Apparently, we missed the opportunity. Where is that at?
Yeah, so the DEQ made the decision based on their national brownfield program.
Understood.
So, yeah, they received 1.5 billion in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. They put out the initial format for how they were going to run it, and then they said initially 10 million was the maximum grant.
Understood.
Then they cut it down to 2 million. Originally, it was we could work with the county, and the county could be the applicant. Then they said, well, clarifying the rules now, you have to own the property. So either the county, the city, a nonprofit, or a tribe would have to own that property at the time of application to even be able to submit that application.
Okay, so your option to buy would not qualify under that.
So we would have to create a nonprofit to
Okay.
purchase the property for 10 million, own a contaminated landfill with hopes of maybe being awarded up to $2 million. So we're actually pushing a larger boulder up the hill. We're trying to get the DEQ at the national level. We're lobbying to get them to change the rules to better support private developers that actually own a lot of these contaminated sites. And whether it's publicly owned or privately owned, it's equally impacting the public. So I am equally as disappointed with the result of that. But yeah, understand it wasn't due to timing or lack of effort. They changed the initial rules. So
Okay. Anything further from Mr. Henderson, from anyone?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for
greatly appreciate your time. Thank you.
So our first item is a discussion item on the financial consulting firm RFQ for urban renewal projects. Would that be you? Who's presenting?
I am.
Mr. Graham.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair, members of the Commission, Urban Renewal Commission. Tonight, we are asking the Commission to approve the draft RFQ to engage a financial consulting firm to conduct financial examination, credit analysis, project risk assessment, due diligence of urban renewal projects. On April 5th, the Urban Renewal Commission completed its review of the framework for decision-making, and which included the use of a financial consulting firm that would play an important role conducting the due diligence of developers and their associated projects. The consulting firm in the RFQ, responding to the request for qualification, would be expected to provide expertise and a resume of company's staff directly involved in fulfilling the scope of the work, provide information on their expertise with evaluating commercial real estate projects, experience with conducting market analysis, experience in utilizing various forms of development incentives, including tax increment funding. They would have to demonstrate their capabilities in deal structuring, providing negotiation support to the staff, abilities in performing financial analysis and risk assessment, experience with conducting investigative financial credit intelligence gathering, experience in reviewing and analyzing developers' legal business form, in other words, who's really behind the curtain, and experience with evaluating the expertise of developers' capabilities in the development of high-impact projects. So this is what we're asking anyone who is a respondent to this RFQ to demonstrate their abilities in. So that's our request for this evening.
And as of this evening, all this is a request to allow you to put out an RFQ. There's no financial obligation on the part of the city or no financial contribution.
Correct.
But it would result in a quote of some type.
Eventually, we'll find out after they respond to the RFQ, and then we'll have a discussion about what the cost would be.
And how would we intend to cover that cost when the moment occurs?
It's expected that the developer, as in the framework, it's stated in the framework of decision-making that the developer is expected to pay for the review of their business. So it's the developers being asked to do that.
Okay, so there'd be no demand for urban renewal funds at any time?
No.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Have a motion on the item?
Not a question, but
Please.
a comment. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Graham, in my reading of this material, see if I've got this correct. So we are looking at doing this to help us set up the information that we need to pursue a future ballot title to talk to the public and get all the numbers correct so that when we figure out which projects we're going to move forward to ask the public about which projects we want to move forward. So would this be sort of the base foundation to help us get to that information?
This is whereby a consulting firm would be brought on board to review the projects when they come forward. For instance, if you put out an RFP, then the due diligence committee would come together, including that
So
consulting firm.
this is after what I'm talking about?
Yes, this is
Okay.
after.
All right.
Quite honestly, I don't understand how the developer is going to bear that cost at that point in the project. Do they build it into their total cost of?
They build it in. It's all of a matter of timing. For instance, the Urban Renewal Commission can hire the consultant, because the consultant would be representing urban renewal and reviewing those projects. The Urban Renewal could also actually pay the consultant and then be reimbursed by the developer for that. And you can manage it in different ways, but they would build it into their cost. And of course, like a lot of business expenses, it's tax deductible. A percentage of it is tax deductible to the developer.
I'll be honest, I'm not entirely comfortable with it, but if all you want tonight is the opportunity to proceed and see what it would look like, there's no exposure at this time.
That's true.
I'll leave it to my
I
companions.
just have one more question. So I was interested to know, so you're looking on this is the Q is the qualifications, and what you're in, and inevitably, I would presume we'd want some sort of a proposal. So you're asking for qualifications, but are you looking at a next step to go to do an RFP?
Well, what you have before you is, I see what you're saying. Yes. Well, no, I'm sorry. The first step would be the request for qualification.
Right.
And then we'll interview the respondents and then decide which one is most respondent and qualified to do the work. And we'll find out the cost from each of the respondents as to for this activity. Now, of course, the respondents will be charging per hour. It won't be a flat fee. That's how it
Right.
works.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it through my urban renewal work.
So that's what we're looking at.
So, at what point in this flow chart does this entity enter into the process?
It enters in two locations. I think at the first, it enters in, there's a partial due diligence.
Preliminary
They enter
review.
there, and then there's a
And then
full
there's
due diligence after the commission decides it wants to proceed. It also enters there as well.
The applicant is going to bear that cost even at that initial phase where it's preliminary review.
No, the applicant bears the cost when the DDA there's a draft DDA, and then once that DDA there's a draft DDA, and then once the DDA is approved by you, then at closing or at signage, then the developer is expected to pay or reimburse the cost as we go along.
I'll leave it to my fellow commissioners. Motions?
I got a question first.
Sorry.
Would be we've listed probably got 4 or 5 projects that we're interested in pursuing. Would each of these projects require this kind of review?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
So each time we had a project, we would go out for this.
No, each time we have a project,
It would get
the consulting firm that's chosen will be engaged in doing all that work. You wouldn't go through an RFQ for every project. This is simply to set up the decision-making structure.
Okay,
That's all that is.
I brought that last.
yeah, I got it.
Chart, and it's on here twice.
This is similar to what we do for like a geotechnical review during the land use process, where, we have a third party, we do it for Natural Resource Overlay District review as well, that is incorporated in the fee, the land use fee. Essentially, we're paying the consultant through that fee to do that third-party review of the technical component of the application. And so in this instance, it would be the technical financial analysis of the potential developer or partner to the URA.
I was asking you a question about RFQ versus RFP, is that you're going to get some firm that's going to come in and say, yes, we are qualified to do this. And then my next question would be, well, what types of projects have you reviewed in the past? And that would get into the RFP process. But I'm assuming you're going to ask them to submit examples of other things that not that all the details, but, what other types of projects have you reviewed? Expertise is one thing, but actual on the ground doing it is another thing to me. So sometimes to me, the RFQ is a little bit on the light side, whereas if you ask for a proposal, you're going to get something more detailed that you feel comfortable with, but maybe you're going to ask them for a proposal after you get it down to 2 or 3 or how many ever you want to do. But I'll go ahead and move to approve the draft financial consulting firm RFQ for the urban renewal projects.
At what point do you think I should have this guy come
I don't know.
I'll second.
up? I'm going to hold the vote for a moment. I know we have the motion in a second. Mr. Gifford, would you like to come up and give us your 3 minutes? I'm going to allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Urban Renewal Commissioners. My name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. Actually, I had a couple of points to make. One, that when I was reading the staff report, it did have an issue about what was agreed on the goal categories, and it itemizes livability, tourist opportunities, recreational opportunities, and infrastructure investments.
Closer to the mic, sir.
There you go.
The top of page 2 of that staff report, it lists the goal categories of livability, tourist opportunities, recreational opportunities, and infrastructural investments, but I don't see anything at all in there about housing or commercial developments or investments. I just want to point that out. The other point that I want to make is that I know that we are moving down a path that ostensibly will culminate in a ballot measure that's been kicked down the road for a couple of years now. And the concern that I have is that by starting on this level, and I think that, staff has already done such a fine job and great diligence in getting this together, that's sort of a fait accompli that this is moving down the road. However, I want to make sure that this doesn't turn into the fiasco that and I don't think that's too strong of a word, that was spent when we hired consultants to try to explain how urban renewal works to our citizens, which in my mind was a tragic waste of money. I went back, I watched every one of those episodes, not counting staff and consultants and electeds. I counted a total of 14 citizens that all of that money reached, which I think is a pretty small return on investment. With that in mind, if we go down through this exercise, I want to make sure that when we wind up with a measure that goes on the ballot someday, that this commission will support that ballot measure, because they are the only ones that will be able to advocate for it. Staff can't advocate for it. And I want it really clearly understood that if you are going to slow down the development of the use of urban renewal by putting it on the ballot, that I would expect that every one of you commissioners would be willing to get out and do what needs to be done to get that ballot measure passed, because this is a tool that we should not be ignoring.
Thank you, sir. Now, we have a,
Comment on his comment.
go ahead.
Mr. Gifford, I think implied in the livability piece is in fact housing and things that would support the community that would come forth in that housing development.
I think livability is so vague that it would encompass all of those things anyway.
Okay, you're done.
All right, let's move on. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Does anybody need the motion repeated? We do not. You want to call for the vote? Please do.
Commissioner Adam Morrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doug Neely,
Aye.
and Chair Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question of Mr.
Motion
Graham?
passes.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, I would have to say that I appreciate William's comments. However, I am not looking at urban renewal to be kind of, I mean, I know we've done the project at the Cove, but I think some of the other projects that we are talking about doing don't really involve housing to the same degree as I would see it from the standpoint of leveraging to create jobs. Now, if housing is a small component of it, that's one thing. And I know we have to finish the Cove, so that'll be my exception to the rule. But I'm looking at us trying to parlay our funds with other funds to create, employment, whether it be, tourism or recreation. But, primarily I'm kind of into jobs, and I want to see that infrastructure, our money put in the infrastructure that's needed to support a job base that's family wage jobs, as opposed to strictly, retail type jobs, those types of things. I mean, those are jobs too, but there's a hierarchy in my mind of jobs, of the ones where people are, taking those jobs, investing their money back into the local community by buying this, kind of what we talked about some years back. So I appreciate the fact that he thought about that, because I also thought about it, but then I realized, no, I don't really want housing to be a major component of this.
Well, people need to have a roof over their head in order to be effective employees.
Well, I don't want to get in a debate tonight, but we have this thing ongoing where we do a development with the intent that we're going to provide employment and housing always seems to come first, and we don't get the employment to go with it, which then puts people in the commuter mode, which loads our transportation system. And honestly, I'm all for in the future where we put in a criteria that until you get the employment component built, we don't enter into the housing component.
I would agree with that. I think Commissioner Smith said the same thing not too many weeks ago, and I concur with that.
I don't have a problem with that. I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you,
Any
Mr. Graham.
communications from staff? Anything further from my fellow commissioners?
I wasn't sure. I thought Commissioner Neely had his hand up, but I might have missed that.
No, it's okay.
So just a couple real quick. So as I explained during public testimony, the information I put on your desk was more informational in nature. If we have direction, we'll bring that back once you've had a chance to review it and digest it. Really, it was just trying to show the progress that's being made and the funding opportunities that exist through federal and state grants and other funding sources that may be available that Summit Development and their consulting firm that's assisting them are working towards seeing what viability there are, how much money is available there, and what the process is, and where the project as proposed lines up with whatever the goals of that grant or funding source may be. The second larger document was the original letter that the Urban Renewal Commission received via email with the ask related to urban renewal funding for the Summit Development project on the landfill. So really those were more informational. I know you probably did receive, I know you did receive them via email, but just wanted to make sure everybody had a hard copy to be able to review. And then we did talk a little bit about the regional solutions opportunity for this property. So we'll be bringing back that topic for the Urban Renewal Commission to discuss once they've had a chance to put it on an agenda. So really the last question, if there are no questions related to those items, is around scheduling. So obviously the City Commission's next regular scheduled work session is next Tuesday, which is election night. I know that we have two commissioners. Mr. Marl's already indicated he will not be available that night. I had a discussion with soon-to-be sworn-in Commissioner Mike Mitchell. He's not going to be available that night either. So I guess I'm looking for some direction because I know I have commissioners who would like to meet. And so I'm looking for direction. If folks want to meet on that night, we would propose bringing back the urban renewal plan that we've been working on. At the last direction of the commission, we started to narrow down the projects, and there was a request to look at what the funding amount for those projects would be. So really, you know, it's getting through the projects that have been identified, how much money wants to be allocated to those projects, and then we do still need to have a discussion about what is going to be sent to the voters. So those are really the two major outstanding issues that we still need to address prior. So the next City Commission meeting is the 16th. And usually when we do urban renewal, we're trying to potentially have the developers, Willamette Stone at the bottom of Singer Hill there, come in to give an update. We're still trying to confirm if that date and time works for them, but we would potentially do them from 5:30 to 6. And then we have a DEI update on the work that's been happening already scheduled with the consultants being available on that night. So essentially we don't have the ability to do urban renewal on the 16th for that full hour to work through that. So really it's more of a scheduling and who's available to be here and if this commission would like to meet or not on that night, the 8th.
As the Urban Renewal
No.
Commission?
As the Urban Renewal
Yes,
Commission.
I'm not available that night.
I'm available, and I don't have any problem meeting. I think we need to keep moving these projects forward instead of delaying things.
I will not be here either. I won't be here.
I will, as noted, I will not be here, not because of my own election, but because of what I do for a living, so.
Doug, are you available?
I'm available.
I'm available, but that's already half of the commission, so.
I know, I understand.
So at this point, we will not be scheduling for Tuesday, it sounds like.
That's correct. Anything further?
That's all for
I
tonight.
just don't want us to miss too many more meetings because we need to keep our schedule up. We need to keep moving. That's just my opinion for myself.
Well, as tempting as it would be to enter into lengthy discussions on some of the items tonight, I'm not going to go there. But I will say this. I agree with the concept of finding employment opportunities. I know in the past we've been told that we don't have the land mass to get those more attractive opportunities. I think we do. We've got things going on out here in Beaver Creek Road with tip-ups and a fairly substantial piece of land. I hope you're out there beating the brush, and I hope you're talking to those landowners and seeing who wants to do what, because we need to bring some employment opportunities of good wages to this community, and housing can follow on its heels. So I have high expectations of staff, and I'll leave it at that. Anything further from commission?
No, sir.
Seeing nothing, we're adjourned.